We're good.
Cool. Just everyone.
I have no idea. I know Akash can't make it, and I know a few other people are incredibly quiet in the group. But we're good with who we've got here. So, hi guys. So this is those of you. I don't think any of you know him, apart from obviously you, Ross. This is Coach Preston. He's the guy who was the head coach before me, and I attribute Leo's tremendous growth as a quarterback to with some of the great work that he did with him in the off season, which is why I've got him here for you guys today to kind of hopefully pass on a little bit of knowledge for you to help us as we go into the next year. And this is probably the only time you'll hear me say anything nice about him as well, because he did completely desert us and move down to Cornwall in the middle of bloody nowhere to get away from us. So just so you know that as well. But it's all on you, Simon.
Thanks, Rich. So yeah, today I want to do a little bit about stuff that you can do around kind of off-field, but stuff that you can also take on-field, and kind of the philosophy that I basically had with Leo kind of within that off-season before we went to kind of 7-0 and on our way to the kind of playoff finals, etc. As I say, as Rich says, his kind of growth from where he was to where he kind of is going, I think is a lot around this kind of philosophy. And I know Leo's doing, presentation on Scout, and that links quite nicely to kind of what I'm going to be doing here, and kind of moving forward, using the kind of theory stuff, using a bit of the Scout, and then kind of how you can put that all into practice. So let's try and share my screen. Hopefully, you should be able to see my screen. Yeah, you see my screen? Yeah, it looks like it. Awesome. So a lot of the kind of philosophies around what I do is based on a few books. So if you kind of want some light reading, best one to get is this book by Doug Maddox, From Headset to Helmet. He basically talks about a lot of the philosophies that he was trying to get through to his quarterbacks, and trying to come up with systems and kind of a way of communicating with the quarterback so that they're both on the same page, so that in games where you don't have a lot of time and you're both trying to convey certain things that you're being able to see using the similar language, you can then kind of be on the same page and put into practice a lot quicker the stuff that's open that coaches are seeing, the quarterbacks are seeing. This is the first book he came out with, and then he's got kind of 3 or 4 more. It's all based on the kind of R4 system that's really, really, really useful. Some of it is probably kind of way beyond where we need to be. Let's just admit, Leah. A lot of it's kind of way above what we need, what you need at your level. But it's really, really useful stuff. You can get away with just this first one, the kind of adaptive diet, or what is open, basically kind of go over a lot of the philosophies and adapt them a little bit more. This one he wrote having kind of just come up with the system, and then the kind of subsequent other 2 are kind of after he'd had the system for a little while and he's kind of adapted it and now kind of basically makes a lot of money off of it, which is useful for him. I'm a teacher by trade, so I like to look at things at kind of how you can use it. So you've obviously got a pyramid of kind of things that are going to help you the most in kind of what you're going to improve, and then stuff, kind of the smaller bits at the top are kind of stuff that are useful. But obviously, if you change or adapt or use them, they're not going to kind of give you as much of a kind of improvement. So for me, kind of this base layer would be your technique, so stuff you're going to work at away from training, stuff you're going to work at training, and to improve yourself as a quarterback, be that passing technique, be that leadership, huddle management, game management, being able to kind of do all the things you need to do in terms of handoffs and stuff. The bit we're going to talk about today, this is kind of second tier, which I kind of call your reactions. So kind of being able to make the correct decisions when you're passing the ball, football being that kind of platform where, yeah, it's very stop-start, but as a quarterback, you're the one that's in charge of things that are happening in front of you, and you need to be able to react to it, whether that be throwing the ball to the open guy, giving coaches the correct feedback, etc. That all comes under this kind of second tier for me. Third tier stuff that Leah's going to go over with you, in my opinion. Scout is a really useful tool. So knowing beforehand what looks you're likely to get from a defense, whether they've got any kind of good players or bad players that you can pick on, that kind of comes up here. And then for me, this kind of top tier that's needed in the pyramid, but it's not the thing that's kind of most crucial to any team, is your install or your kind of your scheme that you're going to be working towards. So that's kind of the top of it. You need all of it to be able to succeed, but your technique is going to be the one that's going to be the most crucial, and the scheme kind of the least crucial. So we're going to kind of look at this kind of second level tier. So in terms of the R4 system, these are all on Huddle if Russ wants to delete stroke use them. If we look at our offense and our defense, I've drawn up a really kind of basic offense. I have no idea what scheme you're installing or where you're going, but basic kind of 2x2 offense, quarterback and pistol. And then I've drawn up our 3-5 defense, 3x3 defense, whichever way you want to look at it. So 6 people in the box, 2 overhang defenders, and then you've got kind of a cover 3 behind it. So in terms of the R4 system, using a touchscreen mouse, they look at everything in terms of underneath a hard deck and over the top of a hard deck. So anybody that's underneath this hard deck at a 7-yard distance can influence your play kind of now, essentially. So if we were to throw a screen over here, anybody underneath this hard deck would be able to get there and influence that play now. If we were to run the ball, anybody underneath this hard deck inside the box would be able to influence that play. And similarly over here, if we were to throw something quick over here, anybody underneath that hard deck. So that's kind of people that play underneath or over the top of the hard deck. You kind of need to think about whether they can influence a play that you were going to throw immediately, so quick screen to X or Z, or whether you were going to run the ball kind of up the middle. Have we got the numbers to be able to do that? Then look at kind of splitting that hard deck into 3. So you've got kind of the outsides where you might throw some sort of screen or sweep or some sort of outside run. And these outside runs or screens, we're looking at kind of our matchup in terms of numbers. How many defenders have we got there against how many attackers have we got there? So in this case, we've got 2 attackers, 2 defenders. So if we were to throw the ball to one of these, we'd have to block 2 people with 1 person. So we wouldn't necessarily have the numbers over here. If, for whatever reason, this guy was playing a lot deeper, we might now be able to throw the ball to one of these 2 guys quickly and get to the outside. You might also look at how good these defenders are. Is this corner quite rubbish and a little bit slow and not great at tackling? In which case you might completely ignore him. You might block this second defender in the box and try and get outside of this cornerback. So kind of things to think about. And then when it comes to the box, this bit in green, which most teams call the box, you're looking at kind of numbers. So in our case, we've got 6 blockers. We've got 2 guards, 2 tackles in the center, plus the tight end. And inside the box, we've got 6 defenders. So we could actually run the ball reasonably effectively as long as we came up with the correct scheme with the numbers that we got in the box. And similarly over here, we've got 2 defenders against 1 person that could block or catch a pass, so probably not got the greatest numbers over there. On top of this, there are what Doug Maddox calls 5 vertical tubes. So there are 5 vertical tubes because we've got 5 people that can go downfield. We've got our 4 receivers, X, H, Y, and Z, and we've got a running back. So they can only defend. We can put like 1 person in each of these tubes, and they'd have to defend them. And these vertical tubes are going to be kind of taken up by defenders post-snap, usually. Pre-snap, if they're lining up kind of 7 yards deep, we're just going to kind of run the ball on them or throw the ball out wide. So if they've got people in those vertical tubes ASAP, it means they're worried about the kind of deep passing game that we might have. And they're generally not going to fill all 5 of those. There aren't too many teams I can think of that are going to run 5 people in vertical tubes downfield, kind of at 7 yards deep. Usually you're looking at some sort of cover 3, in which case Cootie used to run. So you have this corner filling this purple tube over here, this corner filling this purple tube over here, and the safety filling the orange tube. So you might look at trying to exploit the space left in either one of these 2 blue tubes. So we call these kind of your outside fade areas. this might be your kind of box fade, and these two might be your inside seams. But you come up with names, and you come up with kind of a language between yourself and your offensive coordinator, Coach Ross, to kind of where areas are that you can attack. So we used to call these kind of outside fades. You've got your seams, you've got your flat area, and then this is the box. Generally, we wouldn't throw the ball into this area here. So that would then leave us these kind of 7 areas of the pitch that we could throw the ball. Ping. We can also run the ball. So this is really useful to know kind of what it is that we're looking at doing in terms of running the football. So we've essentially got outside run, off tackle, B gap, A gap, and then similarly kind of left-hand side, right-hand side. So these all need to be accounted for when it comes to a defensive scheme. So they need to look at kind of defending all of these gaps. So in essence, they're going to need 8 defenders to defend these 8 gaps, or at least account for each one of these 8 gaps. So if we look at kind of what the defense have got to do, they've got to defend these kind of 7 or 8 zones here and defend these 7 or 8 potential gaps. So, and there's only 11 of them. So at some point we're going to have the advantage if we can scheme well and have the kind of correct way of looking at a defensive philosophy. And that's where a scout comes in. So you'll be able to look at some game film from previous games or previous years to see what they do well, what they do badly, and see what areas of the pitch they like to kind of leave or not defend so well. So you might attack those either with a run or a pass more often than not. So if we look at the scout for a kind of 3-3-5 CUDA style defense from years past, this is a cover 3 defense. So you get 3 people going deep. So in this case, you've got corners and safety. And then these 5 linebackers are responsible for the 5 zones underneath. So you've got these Sam and Will that are responsible for the flats area. 2 linebackers inside might be responsible for kind of this hook or kind of inside seam area. This linebacker generally is kind of responsible for this area in the middle of the field. So pre-snap, you'd be looking at this and saying, if we can hit these 2 seam areas, these are going to be weak. And you might even look at this and say pre-snap. Oh, that's not the thing I wanted. Love huddle. We might be looking at these 2 areas here, pre-snap, being areas of weakness as well. So if these corners are just bailing off straight away, then initially these 2 flats areas would be vacant because Sam and Will have got to get time to get kind of width and depth. On top of that, you've got to be looking at making sure that they're defending the run. So if you look at Sam and Will, they've got the hardest jobs on this type of defense. So they've not only got to defend any runs to the outside here, they've got to defend the flats. So we can put them in a bit of a kind of a predicament in that they can't do both. They've got to do one or the other, or stand where they're stood and do nothing. So that's where things like play action passes or doing something a little bit different can kind of expose these certain defenders having to do 2 jobs. Similarly with these linebackers, it's not so much of a big issue in a 3-5 because these areas of the field are generally not exposed at our level of football. But the kind of higher up football you go, so if you manage to make it to the Prem, you'll find that a lot more passing will happen in this sort of area as opposed to what it does at kind of lower levels. And then it's just a matter of coming up with blocking schemes. It's my nephew crying in the background. It's all right, it's all good. Ignore this part over here now. So now we're looking at kind of different defenses and what they can offer and what kind of issues they might hold in terms of trying to exploit what they do. So this is a 3-4, so we've got 3 down linemen, we've got 4 linebackers, and then they got cover 4 shell. So somebody like UE tend to run this kind of defense. So these corners and safeties are there essentially to stop anything deep in a cover 4 shell, but they're also there as run support. So they actually won't start off that deep. You'll find that what you'll find is these safeties stepped up to sort of 8 or so yards. They're actually playing with 11 people that can defend the run. But these 4 guys need to be their athletes because they need to be able to defend deep as well. So it's a kind of useful defense in that it can do lots of different things, which is quite, if you have the players to do it, it's a really cool defense. But again, you've got linebackers, you've got Sam and Will. So this is Sam. They're having to defend flats as well as the run. Now, because they haven't got as many people in the box, they've only got 5 in the box. That leaves them susceptible to being able to run the ball up the middle. So if we've got 6 blockers and they've only got 5 in the box, you'd think we should be able to run the ball up the middle well. So they need to make sure they've, again, got really good box defenders. So they now need a much better talent level to be able to run this type of defense. So they need these 2 safeties need to be really good at both run support and playing the pass. These 5 defenders in the box need to be really good at being able to stop anything that comes to them in the run game. And then Sam and Will, again, need to be making the really good decisions because they're responsible for stopping the run to the outside, but also stopping the passes that hit the flats. So knowing the kind of defense that you're going to come up against kind of will help you be able to process things quicker and react quicker. Now we move into kind of a man-style defense. So you're looking at things like kind of 3-4, but this time we've got cover 2. So in this kind of defense, these 2 are the only 2 deep threats in terms of kind of helping support any deep passes. And you're actually looking at 4 people being manned up underneath. So whereas before, scroll back a page. This is called a zone defense because they're all responsible for a zone. So if X was to go deep, he'd go through this zone, in which case Will would be responsible for him. And as soon as he went past 8 yards or so, the corner is then responsible for him. Whereas in a defense like this one, they're manned up. So this corner is responsible for this wide receiver wherever he goes. This guy is responsible for this guy wherever he goes. So this is the type of defense where you can really play with matchups. So you're basically, as an offensive coordinator, you're trying to find their weak link and put your best player on it.
A few moments later.
Work when you're looking at actually having a person reading you. So if you're going to do a drill, working on air, so just working smash would be great. But if you can work with smash and have a defender there, all he has to do is give you 2 looks. That's all you need him to do, so that as you're dropping, you're being able to read this guy and you're being able to just do the opposite to what he does. Similarly over here, I've just chosen these 2 as they were concepts we ran really well last year, and I've got loads of footage of it. Similarly on this side, in our kind of switch combination that we've got on this side, we've got an out and an out. All you need is a 3rd player. So if you're running this drill, get yourself a coach or a 3rd player if you're just doing on the downs or wherever, and just get him either to bail off into that space or follow the Y. Gives you that look of, right, okay, I'm reading him. I don't need to look at these receivers because as soon as he makes my mind up, I'm going to whichever one of these 2. As soon as I see this guy turn and follow, I'm just going to hit the space behind him. As soon as I see him bail out here, I'm going to hit the flats and allow us to get whatever yardage we can get. Any questions around that before I move to some film to kind of show you what it might look like?
Yeah, just in like in a situation where they have the outside backer on the left side of the screen, and he goes into coverage.
This one.
And then the W falls out into his flat, and the corner goes back and drops, and they're both covered. What do you do then?
Good question. It's very unlikely that you think this guy's got to stop the run first. So whatever happens, he's going to be slower getting out there. If he just pegs it out wide into the flats, then yeah, you have that conversation with your coach, and you're like, well, actually, he's not playing the run in the slightest. So you then need to come up with a plan where you're taking the opportunities they're giving you. If he does bail, then you just throw the ball away, live another down. Don't try and force things. But then it just becomes a kind of what pathways have you got? So if you think about the 2 kind of things you're trying to do with a football here, if this Will backer here, actually, I'm going to do that. If he widens and goes deep, do you still have that throw-in lane? Is that kind of throw-in lane still there that you can throw it? If you think about kind of where you might place the ball, if the guy's kind of if this guy stood facing you, you don't need to throw the ball upfield at him. You can actually throw the ball kind of back shoulder and away from this wheel, then do so, but not at the expense that this guy's just going to undercut it and have nobody stood in front of him for a pick six. Okay. Similarly with the corner. So if your corner's bailing off deep, he's going to be doing this. He's going to be reading what's in front of him. This is where you need to kind of work with receivers. As soon as he sees that guy deep, he needs to flan out and give you the opportunity to be able to throw that ball to the sideline and still make the completion for 10 to 12 yard gain. But those are kind of advanced level things that you can work on in training. Get used to kind of reading that one guy and picking up the yardage as they're there. And then obviously you'll work out quite quickly the differences between a game scenario and what you kind of see in a practice scenario.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any others?
Can I say something in response to Ryan's question quickly, if that's all right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is a good question. I'd say with that alignment, it's like Coach said, it's very unlikely that wheel backer is going to get any influence on the play. When we're in training in my third year, so the last season before COVID, Dom, who was playing that wheel position, knew our playbook inside out and could actually sort of align himself in a way that would mean he'd try and get in the throwing lane of that hitch. So just about putting a bit more height on the ball. But in a game situation, there was no one that we played as an opponent defense that would know our playbook that well. So I think as a general rule, that wheel backer's going to, unless they're a complete athlete, they're not really going to have much influence on that play because the hitch footwork is just catch, turn, throw. So just get it out quickly if you're worried about the guy's athleticism is what I'd say.
Cool. Yeah, none of this is kind of relating to a specific playbook as such, because I'm sure what Coach Ross shows you in September will be massively different. They were just concepts that we ran. I've got footage on. Oh, useful. There we go. Come on. Right, so game footage. Hopefully you can see this, and hopefully it isn't too choppy. So us versus Bournemouth, we're running cross. So hopefully it's working. Cool. So we're running an out and a seam. So he's a fade. So he's running at the sideline, and this guy here should be the quarterback's read. So you're basically saying if he drops at all, you're throwing the out. If he follows, you're taking the fade. So, come on. I'll let it play once. Oh, that didn't work. Love Hardo. There we go. Hopefully this isn't too choppy. I'll let it play a couple of times so you can see. So we got an out. We'll ignore the fact that it was a broken play. It's actually more the... So if we're looking at this, Leo's just caught a ball. Here's the guy we're looking at. This guy here. We're not too worried about this guy. The fade should... Bloody dog. The fade should be kind of backside shoulder.
Can you tell Claire to shut up?
Ouch. I'll let her know that. So as you can see, 56 is open up, but in this position, we've got a wide receiver on what looks like a really large linebacker. And if you look at that space that we should be running into, it's not the greatest of routes. That's open. That's a really nice space to be able to throw the ball into. There is no way with his hips like that, the size of dude this is, that matchup, he should be getting there before him. This corner should be really, really worried about us going past. I'd even say that his hip alignment, depth, and everything about that is telling me that I don't think he's going to keep up. I don't think he's going to be able to flip his hips in any way, shape, or form and be able to keep up with a route that's designed to go past him. So this guy should be storming past that corner, which he does in this essence. For some reason, he gets caught up with a little bump. I would even like him to run around that, because if Leo's decided to throw that to him, that bump's going to put everything off, whereas you run around him, there is actually quite a lot of space. Excuse me. As you can see, half decent route, could have been better. He's got 3 or 4 yards on him. Left tackle's giving Leo the heebie-jeebies, so he's run around, and then it's just a broken play, so we don't need to worry about it. But you can kind of see the pre-snap thoughts. We've got 1, 2, and then a safety. We know he's going to be going deep. From our scout, we know that he's going deep, and we actually know from scout that we're actually going to be manned up here and here. But this guy is also responsible for the run game, so he's going to be a little bit cautious. As soon as he opens up like that, I'm seeing this matchup as being won, and there's no person stood there, so that should just be thrown. Again, just left tackle, don't do a fantastic job. Okay, safety, same concept, slightly better camera angle. This time we've got our safety really deep here. Got a corner, there's a guy stood just off screen. We've got our outside linebacker, and again we've got the same concept, so we've got the same fade down there, and then we've got a 10-yard out from a slot receiver. I'll let it play once. So we'll go back and we'll do it nice and slowly. Where's the snap? Snap. So snaps happened. They're obviously playing quite deep, so we look at down the distance. We're actually 3rd and 10, so that's why they're playing quite deep. They don't want to give us anything too deep to be able to get that first down. So you can see these two guys playing deep, and he's playing really deep. As Leo catches the football on the snap, we should be getting 10-yard out, and he's given us a really large cushion, so that kind of as Leo's caught that football, his eyes should be on one of these two guys, depending on what area he feels his matchup is. 3rd and 10, he's obviously thought he's going deep with it. Again, another couple of steps, we'll ignore Leo's footwork because it's horrendous. We get to here, and I'd like to have seen him break by now. He's getting quite deep in his route. He obviously wants to get that first down, but let's get out here. The reason this concept is like it is we're trying to put a little bit of stress on this guy. Is he going to follow him deep, or is he going to come and step up? He doesn't really kind of make him do either. So there we go. So now we've got the out. The ball should be in the air by now. And now we're looking at accelerators in terms of matchup and what we got in terms of player body language. So we've actually got half decent-ish looking athlete on this guy with his hips and everything pointing that way. Still reckon that could be easily made. But if you look at number 7, is it? This guy here, the corner, hips are closed. There's no way he's flipping his hips around. He's thinking that he's getting help from the safety, which he kind of is, but that safety's got a long way to go. I think this is the right decision. So he's throwing the ball up there, and I don't think he's put enough on it. If he puts that ball the other side of that corner, gives the receiver a chance of catching it. This play actually led to the touchdown to win us the game. The cornerback drops the ball, and the wide receiver catches it before it hits the floor on the 1-yard line. But if he'd have put that ball just a smidge further, he gives the receiver a chance. So you can see the sideline there. You can see where the defender is. That ball needed to be there, and the receiver runs onto it. So QB's read everything correctly there. Giving himself time, leads into that and throws that ball, 3 or 4 yards further. That's a touchdown, or at least gives the receiver a chance to make the touchdown. Move to a different concept. So this is smash, 2nd and 9. So this is against Solent on their fancy 3G pitch. I think this is the first game of the season. So you can see we've actually got reasonable cushion here. God knows what the stance is here. We've got quite a lot of space in here, and we've got loads of space over here. So we've got some sort of cover 1 look. We've got 4 linemen and 4 linebackers, so 4-4, 2 corners and a safety. So we've got all of this space here. So it's all on what this guy does here. So the route combo we've got is that corner That's a terrible drawing. And a hitch. So as I drew here, we've got that combination just on the other side. So you're basically looking to see whether this corner drops or does he come and play the hitch route. I'll let it play through once. And we'll come back to it. So, as you can see, there we go. So, caught the ball. Corner's not actually moved yet. So, as soon as Leo's eyes kind of come to this guy, we're getting kind of a weird crab backwards. I would probably say that that should have been the ball that was thrown, because he can actually break nicely on that. But Leo's thrown that ball so nicely and so quickly that the corner's barely reacted before that ball's in the air. So really good kind of trust between the kind of receiver, quarterback pair in there. Ping that ball in, good catch with the hands, and it's just about making some yards, which looks like he made 5 before he got tackled by 4 people. But if we kind of rewind back, so if we look at the route that we get here, so combination used to be get to 8 yards, which would be about there, and then you're looking to hit the sideline at 12, so you should be running to about there, and then aiming for here. So you're basically aiming to catch the ball sort of there, and the route we get, yeah, I can't see down that end of the pitch, but that ball was put in there. Perhaps we'd have got some more yardage. But this looks, oh, it's a play 18, so it's quite early on in the game. Because to me, that number 2 is never making that up. Yeah, so he's already 2 yards past him. I know the ball's been thrown, but trying to see what the safety does. So you got the safety in the middle here. Oh, I remember this safety. He started really deep and just ran away. But yeah, you can see kind of what you're looking at in terms of accelerators pre-snap. Right, so we know this is the route combination. Right, what are the accelerators I'm looking at post-snap? What does this corner do? It might have been that in the 18 plays, these two have had a conversation and told him that this corner is horrendous. Because if you kind of look at the number 39's footwork, it's not great. He's not kind of fantastic reactions, quicker reactions, and you probably get there to break the pass up. Let's have a look at the next one. Any questions or anything, just jump in. So we've got same combination, what we call smash, 2nd and 10. I think this one comes down to this side. So this time we've got a little hitch. And this guy is running about 8 yards, about there, and then running that way. So we're looking to see what this guy does here. Does he bail? Or does he kind of play man? Or is he kind of looking like he can make that tackle? So I'll let it play through once. Really good catch, pitch and throw. So he does throw the hitch. So he's read this guy just disappear. The speed. So he wants to catch the ball. So there's the snap. Gets the ball up. So he's basically reading this and hoping he turns around on the spot that he's supposed to. Everything works perfectly. Good catch. Scott picks up 10 yards. Again, we can't see where the safety is, although he does look like he's about 13 yards deep, which is ridiculous, and just disappears. So you're then looking at the other combination matchup. So if this guy was going to be able to make that tackle at 5 yards. So again, we've blown past the outside linebacker. His hips have turned, but he's already behind that play. So if that corner was stood here and you'd thrown the ball over the top, we've still actually made really good progress in terms of technique and the correct route combination. Really good there. But yeah, that's exactly the correct decision. Let's have a look at the next one. So we got another smash. I think these ones are all towards the bottom of my playlist just because of the camera angles. Play through it. Aha. So this is the switch combination. So this is this little combination. So we ran this on one side and then smash on the other side. So pre-snap, we've got slant and then out. Rory here with the Red things over his boots. It's literally going to release really early. He's only getting 1 or 2 yards downfield. And we're looking at the outside linebacker for him, which is quite hard to tell who it is. There it is. I picked it up already. So this is the guy responsible for Rory. And you basically see him what he does. He doesn't actually do anything, which makes his job really easy. So if he'd have disappeared that way in some sort of zone, he'd have thrown to Rory. If he'd have pelted up to try and tackle Rory, seeing that he's on a route, he'd have thrown behind him. But he actually just stands there. So if you watch number 56, does nothing. All of the space out there for Rory. Really easy throw. You just need to make the throw as catchable as possible. 4th down and 1 as well. So really, really good combination. We ran that a lot on 4th down and 1 or 2. So you can see, I want to show you the slant over the top. So if this guy would have pelted it this way, we would have just hit that little space in behind where you can see Jacob running into the space behind, which I think we run on the next play. Yeah. Put this one in just to show you a really good, it doesn't show you everything. So this is cross. So we've actually got the out here is the one he throws, but to show you kind of really good matchup. We don't get to see what happens sadly on the fade on this one. But throw into space and throwing in front of the receiver, a really good kind of combination. Actually, you can just about see it. So if we kind of go slowly, really good route, gets out there quite nicely. And you can see at the bottom of the picture, he's read that we're actually covered. You know, we've got a black helmet running down the sideline with a white helmet quite close. So he's read that he's running down the sideline, which means that there's nobody in this little space over here. Throw the ball into the space. We pick up 8 to 10 yards. You actually watch Leo on this one. He just reads the corner. So he sees the corner go, and all he does is throw into space. There's no way he's seen anything on that. And the guy's not even turned around, and Leo's already throwing it. So it just shows you kind of small amount concepts get really, really good at throwing those things for your receivers. You can get really, really good. You're going to throw a lot of incompletions. You're going to throw a lot of balls that are dropped. But keep working out with your receivers because you'll get half decent. Where's the one I really want? What we got here? Smash. Okay. So we've got another smash. So again, we've got another hitch with a corner over the top. Just reading this guy here. What does he do? So we've seen this a combination a few times, not against Bournemouth. So you can, sadly the camera was really tight, but you can see him just disappear. So he just runs that way. So pick up easy yards, half decent route, catchable throw. I mean, there's nobody. I mean, the closest people on camera are these two. Just shows you how much space he's got, and it's just about trying to beat somebody. Actually, a really good tackle. Doesn't get many yards after the catch. But a couple of things Leo's done here. Read the corner, picked the right receiver, and then just given a really easy catch. He's not tried to ping at his face. He's not throwing it at his knees or his feet. That ball's right in front of his eyes. It was nicely looped at him. It was like, please catch me. And then we pick up 8 yards. Really want that one. What have we got here? Oh, I know this one is. So we got smash on that side, but this is another out slant. I'm not going to show the end of this play because it's horrendous. It makes me cry. But this is the guy we're watching. So back to this one. So this is that outside linebacker. So if he does that, he's going to leave a massive void in here. If he does that, there's going to be space out here. So I'll let it play through. Stop before it gets to the bit that makes me cry. So he actually sees Rory come out in a little route, steps down, and then a really good route from Jacob, outside stem, cuts back inside. So we're throwing behind this guy, so the throwing lane is in there. Really good throw again, really catchable, and Jacob just needs to go in and score, not fumble. But you can see how quickly Leo's using these accelerators. His eyes immediately go to this guy. Guy's left. He's thrown behind him. So it's all about being able to see it and react really quickly. So his technique is being able to throw the ball there. Reactions have been able to allow him to do it and do it process quickly. And then the scout is kind of showing him which guy he needs to look at and what he's likely to see. And then the scheme allowed him to do it. Simples. What will be your next? Oh, yeah. Sometimes it's not about the scheme. Sometimes it's a little bit about kind of your technique and being half decent. So on this, we've got, before we move to this one, there and there. We used to run this play like this. Ooh. And then basically, it was a smash combination. And if this guy came over the top and he came over the top, follow him, we throw it kind of in this little bubble here. This was basically just a one-on-one route. I think this was the game we realised Jacob was half decent. So Jacob's this dude down the bottom here. And he's just really quick. And he can catch everything. So you see on the top here, we've got fade. We got that out. We got Rory in the white boots running a little over that way. And Leo's supposed to look this way. This is only a kind of, if you don't get anything over this side, you can throw your one-on-one matchup. But it has to be a pre-snap thing. So Leo would have known pre-snap that he was throwing this route, this fade on the backside. It's not like he's looked at the right-hand side and processed everything and come back this way. He's thought pre-snap, I'm throwing this one-on-one. I can kind of see why. If we got Jacob here and this corner, there is not a single soul anywhere else near him. So if Jacob beats him, it's going to be a big play. And unsurprisingly, that is a beautiful ball. I could watch that all day long. But yeah, really good throw. Really good one-on-one matchup. And I think that was the first score for Jacob for the year. Jacob scored way too many touchdowns that year. But it just shows you that kind of, you might have on scheme, but sometimes your pre-snap accelerator might just be that I reckon my guy's better than your guy, and you're not actually covering it. So they almost had, it was more kind of over here, and they had everything covered this side, and it was just a one-on-one matchup on this side that we kind of Leo came to. I think that is the end. Yeah, we're back to the start. Are we back to the start? Yeah. That is it in terms of my presentation, unless you've got some questions. But yeah, it's just all about trying to react and use the accelerators in front of you as quickly as you can. Anything to add to that, Leo, or anybody?
I'll let questions come in first, I think.
Cool. Any questions?
Could I just ask Leo about the last play? Did you make the decision because it was 4th and 8 or because it was a good matchup?
Well, yeah, a couple of these plays I'll run through on Tuesday in more detail because they were on the playlist that I sent everyone. But this was pretty much because of it being 4th down, but also we had only a couple seconds left on the clock of the first half. So I know this either needed to make it out of bounds or in the end zone. But we'd picked on that corner, probably the 2 or 3. Yeah, the reaction from the sideline is brilliant. The 2 or 3 plays before this, we tried to pick on that corner, and we were sort of an inch off of scoring touchdowns on each of those plays. So it was really a pre-snap thing, and although he's in some sort of cover 3 look and he's supposed to be dropping deep, as Coach Preston said about the hips, his hips are all over the place and the safety isn't able to get over there in time. So it was about me taking my drop, and then where I'm about to throw, I knew that I could lead Jacob out there into the end zone. With the ball on him.
Is that something you do every game? Are you reading who's the best corner, who's the worst corner, and avoiding them?
Yeah. When I was playing, when I was backup QB, my job was to watch the corners. And when I was starting, I would ask Akash to watch the corners and give me his sort of analysis of them and the safety as well, but mainly the corners. So you can sort of distinguish that matchup quite early on in the game.
Okay.
You know, on film, you can watch last season's film, but some of the players might have graduated. So you don't really know personnel-wise who you're going to be coming up against unless you have tape of that team from that season. And this was only the second game of the season. So, yeah, it was just about getting that information on the game day.
All right, cool. Cheers.
Anyone else? Awesome. Do you want to throw your 20 pence in, Leo, about kind of the system we kind of put together, or any information you want to throw out there in what you used as a quarterback rather than what I used as a coach?
I think it will probably tie into what I'm doing on Tuesday, because I'm planning on sort of the main theme of the session is to talk about the best way to watch film, but then also reviewing the 6 plays that I sent the current quarterbacks and talking about how to digest them as opponents scout, but then also my thought processes throughout that. And then kind of a bit of R4 stuff as well, and how I utilise that whilst watching film. So I think I'll probably save that to Tuesday.
Cool.
But yeah, I can't say there's anything else I'd add from what you said, Coach.
Cool. Anything Ross Coach Ross or Rich want to ask?
No. Every day's a school day, so good to learn even beyond the grave, since you're dead to us. No. I think what some of these plays will be in next year, and there's loads of it on Huddle. So I'm not doing anything this year that isn't a tweak or a refinement, and it's the same with the scheme you've just ran in May. So there's plenty to find on Huddle if you want to take a look. And then the only other thing I'd say is, none of this is we don't, it's all designed so that you pick a side based on what you perceive pre-snap. So like how Coach Preston's talked about pre-snap accelerators. So you've got your 2 or 3 things to think about pre-snap, and then you kind of commit to like half of a field, and then from there, it's as simple as you're reading one guy, like the hips of one guy. So it can sound quite complicated, and it can feel like there's not a lot of elements to consider. But really, when you break it down, it's like 1 or 2 things pre-snap, and then 1 thing post-snap. I'm never going to, and Coach Preston never asked Leo to, have 3 or 4 things going on in our head when you're busy trying not to get murdered by a D lineman. You're just gonna have 1 thing to think about post-snap. Any more than that's too much. So it might sound like a lot, but really, it's our job as coordinators to make it as simple for you as possible.
Indeed.
Yeah, I can agree with that more.
I've done a bad job.
Pardon?
If it's not, then I've done a bad job.
Yeah, but it's completely right. I mean, I didn't read beyond 2 routes in that season, and it really does help you out, especially if it's your first year starting. So yeah, really agree with what Coach Morrison just said.
Awesome. So I'll just finish off then. Yeah, obviously one of the things that we're doing this whole off season, guys, is to do as much as possible to get you guys ready, and maybe even more so ready for a season than like rookies usually are. And so this is just obviously the first of a few of these kind of things we've got going over the next couple of weeks. We've got Leo's one next week. We're going to do one about quarterback and leading the culture. We've got a presentation from the offensive line coach to talk to you about what the offensive line do. with their their protections and what they expect and that pisses them off about quarterbacks and what they do as well, because they're the guys at the end of the day who are saving your ass from getting murdered by some big guy running at you from 10 yards away kind of thing. So all these little bits and bobs to kind of help you understand and question and get on board to succeed at the position, because you're all in here for a reason. So, and the more that you get out of this, the more you're going to be able to bring into the preseason next year and kind of compete for the whole thing. Coach Preston is even though he's in Cornwall, he's going to help us out as much as we need to. So if you've got any questions, we can rely on him. We've got Coach Merson, obviously, who's leading the offense. We can rely on. We've got Leo, who's going to do some work. There's a lot of football minds here, a lot of good offensive football minds. So over the next month or so, 2 months before we even get in kit again, get on the field again, if you have any, we've only taken, Leo, one off at the moment, all right? There is still one on there.
Do I not get that title yet? What am I?
Not yet.
No,
Coach. Where's my camera? Coach. But there's a lot of really good offensive minds that will help out with any and all questions you guys have. So keep utilizing that chat with any questions, any thoughts that you have, and just until we get into the CUDA specific stuff in September, go full open mind. You know, there's no questions too stupid or well, there are very stupid questions, but there's no problem asking stupid questions, because I'd much rather get them out there and get you guys ready, you know, and on point come the beginning of the year, rather than have us being like, oh, I don't know what to fucking do as a quarterback and all those kinds of things. So once again, thanks for turning up to guys. And if you've got any other questions, drop them in the chat and we'll see what we can do for you, okay? Excellent. Cheers, Si.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, cheers, coach. See you guys.
Coach Preston.
Pleasure, guys.